What does a fashion show have in common with wall and floor tiles? iTile, of course, a new boutique concept store and the best way to shop for the world's most beautiful tiles. Step into this world of home couture at a brand new iTile store opening this Saturday in Centurion at Highway Business Park, 95 Park North Avenue, Voyes Kraal, and celebrate the launch with special offers and free delivery. Let your home show fashionable flair in iTile style.
The Forum at 8 on SAFM.
It's 8 minutes after 8. Thank you so much for staying with us here on AM Live. If you've just tuned in, welcome to the show. It's time for the Forum at 8. And this morning we host Khaya Dlanga. He's a blogger. He's a social media guru. Author of, to quote myself, a memoir, which I've been reading, occupying myself with. And, of course, we're going to find out from him exactly, where he came from. Because it was like one day there was this guy, Khaya Dlanga. and Khaya, welcome first and foremost to the Forum at 8.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
The other day, when we were telling everybody around the newsroom, we have Khaya Dlanga because people want to know who's coming in, this week. And one of the reporters asked, who is Khaya Dlanga? Why is he famous? So who is Khaya Dlanga?
This is a very difficult question. Actually, I never know how to answer that. I'm just a guy, who, I don't know, does what. I'm the guy that everyone asks who's Khaya Dlanga. I'm that guy. Because nobody knows what I do. So it's difficult. That's why I cannot actually answer the question on us, who is Khaya Dlanga? Because I think there is no one answer. I think there are many different things, that are about me that make who I am. So to kind of confine it to like a thing is really difficult.
And this morning we are doing the show with a little bit of an addition. So you can actually go and stream the Forum at 8 at sabc.co.za forward hashtag news, and on YouTube SABC News account you will actually be able to see what Khaya is getting up to in studio. So we are actually streaming this particular conversation this morning and, pioneering new things, innovation. Yes. And I think it's very fitting that we start this off with you in the hot seat.
Oh, wow. Is this the first time?
It's the first time that we are doing this.
Wow, I feel so good.
Wow. There's
but
something
I thought,
else.
I didn't put on my makeup and everything. I didn't shave because I was like, I'm on radio. Who cares?
It doesn't matter because this is radio and yeah. We come with our radio faces, yes. Not our television faces.
I came with my, in the middle of the night face.
But Khaya, let's just go back somewhat. People know you from Twitter. How many followers do you have at this point?
200,000. Well, just over 200,000.
Wow. And then that is a lot. And, but I wonder how many people actually know who Khaya really is, where he comes from. He comes from Dutyeni in the Eastern Cape. But talk us through your early years, how it all started, where it started for Khaya Dlanga.
Well, yeah, it started in this village called Dutyeni in the Transkei, just outside a small town called Mount Elif. So that's where it really started. And as I describe it in the book, it's this village. It's almost like in a valley, and the entire village is almost surrounded by these mountain ranges. Some of them are quite distant. And when I was young, I was convinced, this is the whole world. This is where the world is. And so I couldn't imagine that I used to imagine what could be beyond those mountains. It didn't make any sense that there'd be something beyond them. And in the village, I don't know if you remember, there was a thing called Deba. But anyway, I forgot what it was actually called. But what they did, it was this company that used to recruit men in the villages and take them to work in the mines. Yes. So in the village, there were no young men. So you just had old men, young, women and children, and that was it. And the men would come back twice a year. So in December, to plow and all of that, and then in around Easter to kind of. But that was the only time they ever came back. You never saw them. And you'd constantly have this, and one of the things that I remember that always happened to me, so if someone saw me picking up like a heavy object, something heavy, they'd be like, oh, you're a strong man now, you are ready to go and work in the mines, you know. So that was the kind of environment that I grew up in, where your deepest aspiration was supposed to be to go and work in the mines. And I thought that someday, you know, I would be working in the mines and digging for gold.
But who was your greatest influence at that time as a young boy?
Oh, definitely my grandfather and my grandmother. So those two were great influences because I grew up with them, and my mother had to go and work in East London, you know. And so they were really the two people who really shaped, I think, my formative years. And I'd probably say my grandfather mostly.
And what did he teach you?
Wow, my grandfather was, you know, those movies where you have like a drill sergeant and he's shouting and screaming instructions the whole time. That was my grandfather. So my grandfather was quite hectic in the sense that, like, when he called you, right, you couldn't say Tatomkhulu. If he says, he'd shout, Khaya Dlanga! He said, Tatomkhulu! So you have to scream, and you have to run when he calls you. You can't walk to him. So you have to run to him. And you always have to carry your stick with you because a boy cannot not have a stick with him. And there's a certain way you're supposed to carry your stick. And you stand in front of him when he's issuing instructions. And after he's issued these instructions, you have to get up and run. You can't just sit down. So that was my grandfather. But the funny thing about him, even though he was this strict, was that he was also quite generous. So he struggled, this moment. Let me give you an example, actually, where there was a time I actually mentioned in the book where he'd come back from a long day, and my grandmother told me to go and give him his food. The lid is closed, and I give him his food. And then he calls me, he says, Khaya Dlanga, Tatomkhulu! And then I run to his room. He says, where's this meat, right? And I'm like, and then he starts, he doesn't hit me because he's so big. He starts he's almost like shoving me from side to side. And I'm so intimidated by his size because he never raises his hand, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to die here. He's just going to kill me. So I start crying, and not from pain, but from the fear. And then my grandmother hears this, and she says, what's going on? But my grandfather doesn't answer. That's all he's saying. And then my grandmother, I haven't dished it up yet, you idiot. And then after that, so now my grandfather he's feeling so guilty, and he apologizes. He gives me his food. He makes me eat his meat. He pours me some cool drink. He is so apologetic the whole time. But he was quite gentle, even though I was also quite hard at the same time.
You were innocent in that instance, but did you ever steal the meat?
No, I didn't.
Never?
No, I never stole meat.
Never tempted?
I was that terrified of my grandparents. Do you know that to this day, I still don't curse. I still don't swear, because I am so worried that if I do swear or say anything, my grandmother, who has been, dead for over 20 years, will come up behind me and slap me in the head. And that's how I think they molded me. They molded me so well that lessons from way back I still carry with me today.
I just want to go back to something you mentioned in the book where you say, if you look at the natural beauty of Dutyeni, and you compare it to Franschhoek, but then you also compare the socioeconomic conditions of the two places. And I was wondering, when you were little, when you were growing up, did you appreciate, did it occur to you that this was such a beautiful place that you were growing up in?
I used to really love looking at the mountains. And especially after it rained, because you see these waterfalls that would fall down the mountainside. And it was really beautiful to see. But I don't think that I looked at it because I enjoyed it. And I think when you come from a certain kind of place where it seems like you don't have much, what you desire is to see tall skyscrapers, to see buildings, to see highways. And so did I really appreciate that and see that as beautiful? No, I did not see it as beautiful, because when I look back, it actually symbolize a bit of hardship, for the people who live there, because it is not as romantic, I think, as people like to look at village life, because it's actually not romantic at all. Because, people have to wake up in the morning, they have to go and fetch water from the river, they have to go to the forest to collect, a firewood. So it's a very, very hard life, and you have to look after cows, and it's raining, and you have to, it's very, very tough life. And that's why I think when I look at it, I don't think that, oh, wow, it was so beautiful. But those people who don't know it and have never experienced that kind of life, they will say it's beautiful. But it's not a beautiful life.
If you've just tuned in on the Forum at 8 this morning, we're hosting Khaya Dlanga, and he's, of course, a very famous social media guru. He's also a blogger. He's an author, looking at his latest book now, To Quote Myself, a memoir by Khaya Dlanga. And you can, of course, watch the live stream interview with Khaya Dlanga this morning on SABC News website, sabc.co.za/news. And you can also watch it on our YouTube channel if you want to see, what Khaya looks like this morning. And of course, the lines are open: 0891 104 208. You can SMS us on the number 34701. Tweet or Facebook AM Live on SAFM or at Sakina Kamwendo. Now, clearly your grandparents, were the primary caregivers. They were the primary influence on you as Khaya Dlanga. But what about your parents, siblings? Who were they? Talk to us about that.
I had a sister. Well, I still have a sister. I'm saying I had a sister. She was like about a year and a half younger than I am. And we also both grew up with my grandparents. And my mother at the time was working in Mdantsane, because my father had passed away when I was five, and he'd passed away. But my mother had actually gone to start working in East London, Mdantsane, by herself, because my father had actually gone to Joburg, and he'd come to Joburg, and he kind of disappeared and forgot that he had a wife and 2 kids. And so my mother was like, you know what, I'll show him that I can do this on my own. And that's what she did. And my mother's influence is very different in the sense that she was like that she was almost the cheerleader who kind of tells you and makes you believe that you can do it even when you've tried your hardest not to do the thing that she believes you can do. So my mother was that kind of influence in my life to kind of get me to dream beyond what I was dreaming.
And you say you were 5 years old when your father died. Now, what was it like at that point at Tatumkulu's house, when the funeral was taking place? Because one can only imagine, the whole village was probably there. And then what's going through your 5-year-old mind?
Because what was going through my mind was, oh, wow, this is so cool. Like, everyone is coming to the house. It's so full, and everyone is passing over me. They're like, so people are like, oh, this must be Zandisile's son. You must be. And they're so proud, and they'll offer me food, and there'd be meat. So I was never hungry. I was always full the whole time. And because you're getting so much attention, so I didn't know what was going on, because I didn't really have a relationship with my father, because he disappeared. He went to Joburg. And so I didn't understand what was going on. And what I enjoyed the commotion. Every single time some new family or arrived, they'd be like singing at the gates, and they'd come in, and scones galore everywhere.
And you go on to say that no South African funeral is complete without scones.
No South African black funeral is complete without scones, and we had those by the truckload.
So you still look for those when you go to funerals?
Oh, well, I don't know if I should feel ashamed for saying I do, but I do.
And also the pride of the mourners is something that you talk about.
Yes, because they had... it's weird because I think they want to give you a sense of comfort. So they give you a lot of attention because I think they're feeling sorry for you, because they know that like you don't have a father anymore. They're looking at you that way. And there's pity, but at the same time, they are very proud of the fact that when they see me, they recognize that I'm my father's son. You know, they're like, this is Andisile's son. And they kind of fold their arms. Yeah, no. And I think for me, those are very interesting moments. It was fleeting, but it kind of stayed with me for a very long time.
And your mother during this whole funeral?
She was sitting like on the madrasi, as you know. So she was sitting in madrasi. There was like my aunt with her, and she was all like in black the whole time. She hardly said anything. But I'll never forget this at the funeral. And, you know, as the coffin is descending, you know, it's being lowered. My mother so she's wearing all black, and she starts to cry, and she kind of goes forward, and I think my grand and my aunt are holding her. And in my mind, in my 5-year-old mind, they are trying to push her into the hole. So I kind of start crying, and I start grabbing her leg, and I start pulling it away from the grave because they've just lowered this coffin. It's empty, and she's just moving forward towards it. And then I just started crying, and I'm pulling it, thinking that, you know, that's what's going to happen. But, you know, it's so funny how as a child you see things differently because you don't know what's going on. And for me, that's what I saw. I saw someone trying to get rid of my mother. Yeah.
And what is your relationship like with your mother? Would you say it's a close relationship? You know, comparisons, of course, are odious. But how does it compare with the relationship between you and your grandmother?
Oh, no. Well, I mean, it's much closer, my mother's relationship. But I think most relationships, they go through, like, different times. I mean, there was a time where I used to call my mother every single day when I was in Cape Town. So when I lived there, I'd speak to my mother on the phone every single day. And so I'd say that, yes, I'm pretty close with my mother in that sense. But do I call her every day? Now, no, I don't call her every day. And every now and then she'll send me like an SMS and saying, you know, giving me some guilt trip because I haven't spoken to her or I haven't returned like a WhatsApp that she sent. You know, so yeah, so we have a very healthy relationship.
And your relationship with your sister?
My relationship with my sisters, because I have 2 sisters and 1 brother, and I'd say it's quite a. It's so funny because even with my sister, because every single day I went to school with her every day, would go together, would come back from school, and we would come back from school, continue chatting, and my mother would always say, you guys saw each other the whole damn day, am I supposed to say that? And you are still talking, and you're still having a fat chat. What is going on? But I think now she's in Cape Town. I mean, that's in East London actually now, and I'm here. So I probably have a closer relationship with my mother than I do have with my sister.
And then, of course, the lines are open, and we'll come to that in just a moment because, you know, I'm just trying to get as much of the story out as we possibly can before we go to listeners. The incident with Monwabisi, when you were a child, what happened? Did he beat you up or did he scratch you and you ran home?
Oh, yes.
Tail between your legs.
So this boy, I had... He pushed my sister. So I was with my sister, and I don't know, maybe I was 6. I don't know how old I was. And he pushes my sister, and I'm like, what do you think you're doing? So I go to him, and I start fighting. And then he pushes me to the ground, and he starts scratching my face. And now I run home because and I'm like, yeah, my grandmother's going to sort this boy out. So I get there and I say to my grandmother, I'm crying and I've been scratched, my face has got like blood in it. And I tell my grandmother, Umonwabisi just beat me up. And at that point, I was so convinced my grandmother's going to hit him so badly. And my grandmother was like, so what am I supposed to do? And why are you here crying? Go back and fight. I was like, what? Because my grandmother was like this Christian woman who is gentle, everyone loves, because she's like, Gulama Kuru, where everyone goes and everyone loves. But now she's telling me to go fight. I was flabbergasted. So I go back to Monwabisi and I am so angry. He's in front of other boys. And I think because I've just been humiliated by my grandmother, because I thought that she was going to look after me, but now I have to fight for myself. And I did go back to him, and I beat him pretty badly.
You did?
I beat him up.
Did you go back and tell her that you beat him up?
Yes.
And what did she say?
Well, she was like, well, then never come back to me and tell me that some boy beat you up, basically. So she basically told, I think the thing that I learned from that was, yes, you may be, it's almost like that Ernest Hemingway quote where it says, a man may be destroyed but never defeated. Right, so I think at that time when that boy bit and this, he literally did destroy my face because I was bleeding from it. And then I went back and I was not defeated. And I think maybe there was a strong lesson in that you cannot always run to someone else for help. So you've got to do certain things yourself, even if they're hard.
Khaya Dlanga, our guest this morning. And then, 6 years old, now you're going to school.
Yes.
Where? How?
To Jenny still. I started, my mother wanted me to go to school really young. So I went to school very young. I was like at least 2 to 3 years the youngest in any class until I was in standard 3. Anyway, so I was really young when I went to school. And I remember the first day in school, the teachers does a roll call, right? And then my name comes up, and they say, but Khaya Dlanga, right? So I don't get up. And they say, Khaya Dlanga, I still don't get up. And then obviously the teacher knows who I am and tells me to get up, so I stand up. Because in my mind, my surname was Boyce, because I grew up in my grandparents' home.
Oh.
Yes, so, and the surname was Boyce. It was such a revered surname in the village. And when people called to me, mentioned me, they're like, Langa Boyce. So in my head, I'm a Boyce. So being a Dlanga was a bit odd because, and I thought when my grandfather used to kind of play or with me, he'd be, he's Dlanga, cool, or the big Langa. And I thought it was his nickname for me. I didn't think it was my surname. So it was quite a moment for me when I realized I was not who I thought I was at the time.
Did you go home and ask about it?
No, I didn't ask. Children didn't ask questions. Then we didn't. I just accepted. Okay, well, I'm Langa then. I guess I'll take that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we're going to move on to when you moved out of the village and, of course, your trip to Cape Town. Wow, a really, really fascinating reading in your book here, to quote myself, a memoir by Khaya Dlanga. And he's our guest this morning. And, you can call. We will take those calls, 0891 104 208. And, of course, we also live streaming this interview. So if you go to the SABC website, www.sabc.co.za/ZA/news, and you can actually have a look there, or you can go to our YouTube channel. Right now, though, 8:30 and time for news headlines with Vabakshni Chetimala.
Thank you, SK. Good morning. Police and private security officers have been deployed outside Eskom's multi-billion-rand Medupi power station at Lephalale in Limpopo as the strike by construction workers continues. And here's a wrap of this morning's top stories. Former COSATU General Secretary Zwelinzima Vavi has called on 9 major unions loyal to his cause to determine the future of COSATU. Vavi was addressing the Shop Steward Council in Cape Town. Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba has assured the international community of government's seriousness in combating xenophobia. Gigaba met with ambassadors in Pretoria last night. The meeting follows acts of xenophobic violence in KwaZulu-Natal after King Goodwill Zwelithini's alleged call for foreigners to go back to their countries of origin. EFF members in the Nelson Mandela Metro are threatening to destroy statues in future, not just vandalize them. The EFF earlier claimed responsibility for recent damage to 2 war memorials in Uitenhage and Port Elizabeth. That's how it's looking for now. I'll be back with a full news update at 9.
Traffic on SAFM.
Still a bit of traffic around if you're en route towards Pretoria. The N1 queuing up after the old Joburg Road into Bruckfontein interchange. A vehicle overturning there earlier this morning. Olifantsfontein from Blue Hills through to the N1's heavy. Traffic light problems at the N1 bridge continue to just really get in the way of that traffic flow. The R24 towards the airport still under pressure after an earlier crash. You're queuing from Edenvale up towards the Barber Road, and heavy pressure on the N12. It's a backlog clearing through after this morning's crash on the N3 at Edenvale, but there's now a stationary vehicle just after Craft Road. So the N12 Craft to Galulis remains slow. Mike 1 all of a sudden under quite a bit of pressure as well. Looks like maybe a breakdown or a crash in the double-decker section. Very heavy coming up from the Gold Reef City side. Cape Town, a big smash on the Melkbos Road. That's the M19 between Melkbos and the N7. And heavy pressure on the N1 inbound. Traffic queued up this morning from the N7 bridge all the way through to the CBD. Durban, a reminder, if you're heading to or from King Shaka International Airport, give yourself extra time to get through the new roadwork delays at the Mshloti interchange. Rob Byrne, AM Live, Traffic Watch.
And time now to check in with Rowena Bird, who's back. Welcome. And what's coming up on Morning Talk?
It feels really good to be back. Thank you very much, Sakina. Coming up on Morning Talk today, we'll talk about what we should be doing to protect our constitutional democracy and also enhance nation building. We'll look at the pros and cons of the use of cannabis or dacha. We will also debate the Gauteng Education Department's electronic admissions process, which has been criticized by FEDSAS, and talk about permanent membership on the United Nations Security Council and why it does not represent Africa. That and a whole lot more coming up on Morning Talk between 9 and midday. Thank you, Sakina.
The Forum at 8 on SAFM.
Thank you so much, Rowena. And speaking to Khaya Dlanga this morning, and we are live streaming this interview for the first time. You can go on to sabc.co.za/news, and you can also watch this on our YouTube channel. I've been told to hold this book up to the cameras. You see, this is what happens when you're not used to, cameras when you are doing radio. But here it is for those who are watching. To quote myself, a memoir by Khaya Dlanga. That is the book. And talking about Khaya's life story this morning, and we are really trying to rush through it because there's so much to tell, and yet we want the listeners to also have an opportunity to interact with you. So now, you're in primary school, but you moved schools at the same time. So just talk to us about that schooling period.
When I was in school, the village that I grew up in, Dugini, I was really young. There was at a point where I was in standard 1, right? I was standard 1 with my cousin who was 21. He was 18. And I was young. I must have been like 6 or something like that. And he was really... So, because his job was really to look after cows. But anyway, so... when my grandmother passed away, my mother decided that, you know what, since my grandmother's gone and my grandfather is just wanting me to look after his cattle, that's all he wants me to do, she decided that I have to go away. And she took me to this boarding school called Little Flower Junior Secondary School. It was a really prestigious school in the Transkei at the time. So, and then, Mandela was freed and schools were open to black people. White schools were open to black people. So I ended up going to this school in East London, and where if one were to look at the kind of place I came from and the school I went to were completely incongruent. So I almost had no right to go to the school that I went to. Even in the neighborhood, that we stayed in Mdanzane, because the house I lived in was, we actually shared it with another family. It's like the typical matchbox house. And so the one family had, the other 2 rooms, and we had the other 2 rooms. And, the kitchen served as a lounge for visitors and also for a place for me to sleep. And so every morning, I remember I was so aware of how different I think my life was, that every morning my mother would wake up, light the paraffin stove, hit some water, maybe iron, my shirt before I go to school. And I was so aware of the fact that my clothes had been ironed using a paraffin stove, that maybe other kids will smell the paraffin off me. And they will know that I'm not like them. And they will know that I don't come from, a well-off family. They'll know that I have no electricity. So it was quite a weird, kind of strange period for me, where when I was in school, I deliberately, or now I think it was deliberate, or subconscious, I don't know, I elected not to have friends, because if I have friends, it means they'll have to come visit me. They'll have to come to my home. But if they come to my home, they'll know that I'm not like them. They'll know that I don't come from a well-off family. They'll see there's no electricity. And
Do you think you were ashamed?
Yes, of course I was. I think I was. I don't think I was necessarily ashamed. I think that I was worried of how I would be treated if they found out. So I felt that I would be treated differently because they found out that, I'm not like them. I was not necessarily ashamed. Yeah.
And then let's just move quickly to Cape Town now, because now you're going, to further your education. And the story of how you got into the AAA School of Advertising, really, really fascinating. But if you could just précis that for us.
Okay. Basically, after I, finished my matric, I did not, to be honest, I did not study very hard. I did not study very hard because, for me, I didn't understand the point of me studying and working really hard when I knew that my mother was not going to have the money to take me to college. So I was like, whatever, I'll put in as little effort as I possibly can. And then the following year, now my mother tells me, okay, it's time to go study. And in my head, I'm like, but you don't have money. It's impossible for me to go anywhere. And then, so long story, I end up going to Cape Town and not having applied to study the AAA. And when I get to the front desk at reception, I speak to a lady there. Her name is Sis Tandy. Sis Tandy is like, oh, I'm trying to get into the AAA. And then she says, I'm done. I'm telling you right now, you're wasting your time, because all these other kids, they came here with their white parents, and they have been turned away because applications were closed last year and everyone was accepted last year. Interviews happened last year, so you can't get in. And then I had this strategy. I don't want to call it a lie. This strategy when I was on my way to Cape Town, and I said, and if they say that, I know what I'll say to her. So I said, well, I did apply last year, but I didn't get any response. And then so she was like, oh, now, she was stumped. She didn't know what to say. So she called the registrar. I tell the registrar the same story, and she's like, oh, okay. And then she starts going through these files, and she sees that my name isn't there. So she's kind of stumped as well. And then she gives me these application forms to fill in. And these forms were, you needed 3 weeks to fill them in. And she gave me 3 days to fill mine in. So it was like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. On Monday, I had to return it. And I was like, she has decided that I'm not coming in. She's made up her mind. How am I supposed to do this in 3 days? So that entire weekend, I must have slept for 2-3 hours because I was just working on this project, working on it, because it's lots of assignments and exercises that you have to kind of perform and essays. So I eventually, I make the deadline 12 o'clock on Monday, and I slam it there proudly there. I'm done, And then Lynn then says to me, she says, okay, come back in 5 minutes. And then I'm so shocked. It's like, you can't tell me to come back in 5 minutes because it's impossible for you to go through this document in 5 minutes. And then I leave anyway, and I come back in 5, and she tells me to come back in 10. And then after that, I come back in 10 minutes. She says, okay, come back in 20. And then when I come back after these 20 minutes, she's looking, she's paging. She says, I must say, I'm actually very impressed. I am very impressed. We've decided to accept you, so how are you going to pay?
And how were you going to pay?
Well,
because you only came with,
500
rand
yes,
to Cape Town.
Yes. No, I paid the registration fee, which was 60 rand. Okay, so I paid that. And then I said, well, my mom has a property in the Transkei that she's going to sell, which she did have a plot, but it was worth nothing because it's in a village. And then she also had some cows and sheep, which she actually did sell. But all of that kind of, through the course of the year, that all ran out. Because it's expensive.
And Khaya's mom, of course, made many, many sacrifices to keep him at this prestigious AAA School of Advertising in Cape Town. But the hardships he goes through, you have to read the book. To quote myself, a memoir of Khaya Dlanga, that's the book, and you can have a read about all of that. But let's go to the lines, 0891 104 208. Zbu in Langa, good morning.
Molweni.
Molo, Zbu. I'd not got a shot.
No, when
I know.
did you try going to because
I know. I'm joking. Yes.
No, man, no, ndizobetha kolukafaka ulwimi apha ndizophinde ndikhumshe. Usibuluthi dana is Lou befollowisha abantu abayi-20 and then in 4 hours wagqibele followisha abantu abayi-300 because of you.
Okay, so Sbu, you had 20 followers
on IG, and then what happened is I bought his book, and then I took a selfie, posted on Twitter. He screenshot it and then I posted on IG, and then some of the ladies, they thought I'm really looking well, and they started following me.
So you had 300 new followers because of that.
Close to 300. I'm close to 300 from 20.
I remember.
So, lately, I've got this gig of being Mr. Delivery because most of the ladies be like...
They wanted him to deliver my book.
Actually, tomorrow I'm delivering one to Musgrave tomorrow.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, take a picture.
So, most definitely, I'll take a pic and then take it. But my point basically is that, my question actually in the comment is that, like you said before that you never had any friends because you felt like you would be embarrassed on due to situation of how you grew up. But following you on Twitter and on IG, you post some of the motivational things like, don't try to fit in, be yourself, try to stand out, all of those things. Is it because of your previous life, as a saying, due to like coming from the disadvantaged community, the things that you're saying now is the things that you learned previously that you don't want us to fall in to what has happened to you, or it's just some of the things that you read and then you fell in love with and then you think of sharing with the people. And then my comment as well is that you inspire us a lot because in some cases, even when I read his articles on thing, Mail and Guardian, thinking he's a young black guy, I thought he's an ANC member, but when you read his column, you don't know where he sits. I think it's a very good thing that some of us, we try to show that where we fall in. I mean, it's one of the things that we learn a lot from him. One day I hope I'll meet him and then he'll sign my book.
Thank you. And for those who are wondering, IG is Instagram. So that's what Sbu was talking about there. Let's go to another caller. Shaka Sisulu. Good morning.
Hey, Shaka. Hello?
Where did Shaka go now?
Oh, sorry. I'm on my hands free. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you? I know supposed to be having breakfast, but yeah, I can't.
Yeah, I can tell. Hurry up and finish that interview so you can come have breakfast, Mchan.
All right.
Yeah, no, it's so exciting to hear so many people, speak so warmly and fondly of you because that's, I guess that's how I feel, that's how your friends feel. And, we're wishing you all of the best of luck.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Shaka.
Okay, Shaka.
Yeah, and tell everyone how you sold out a book in a month, Mchana.
Yeah. No, yeah, that was nice to hear.
But Shaka, we want the juicy bits. Come on, tell us some scandal. Share.
There was this one time. No, I can't do this to this guy.
No. You started well. There was
go
this
ahead,
one
Shaka.
time.
I'll deny.
Continue.
But go ahead and I'll deny.
No. I think the only thing that is that I have disapproved of in this man's life has been some of his political convictions much earlier on. But he's come around now.
What was wrong with his political convictions?
He used to do this YouTube. In fact, when I met him, that's the first thing I told him. I was like, Khaya, you're a smart guy, but your politics is all wrong. He used to do these YouTube videos and support Cope. What the hell is this?
Oh,
Oh, Shaka, my dirty laundry right there like that, eh?
And he actually used to do YouTube videos.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
You know, but his YouTube videos used to be like very popular. They used to be like, they used to go global. People used to watch them from all over the world. So if you were sitting in the States, you'd think that Cope was going to win the election.
Oh, well, we'll find out what has changed since then, Shaka, and about his political convictions more contemporarily.
Yes.
Shaka, thanks so much for calling in. I just want to read some of the messages. Jacques Cupido, thank you so much, saying it's excellent to watch AM Live on live streaming. So thank you. You know, at least we know someone went there and watched. We are, of course, pioneering this. So if you want to go and watch, go to our website, sabc.co.za and /news. And you can also go onto the YouTube site and you'll find this particular interview going out live on those sites. Just some of the messages coming through. Tulani Dasa says, thank you for being such an inspiration, noble son. In my arrogant opinion, you are amazing. God bless you. Chris Maxon says, Khaya's story reminds me of my mother, widowed at 28, who put me through school by doing moonlighting, hashtag women power. And Phumzile Mpompo says, I'm inspired by Khaya Dlanga's story. We need more people like him in Mzansi. Extraordinary. And then some other messages as well. Monde Mahamba in Flagstaff says, thank you so much, SK, for bringing someone from the rural areas of Matlesibeng.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Khaya is my homeboy. So you see, people are listening back home.
Wow.
And Kanye Kambule in Middleburg says, Khaya, oh my goodness, you are the most funniest, smartest, and inspiring person ever. You rock. And this one, okay, I'm not sure what to make of it, but I'm going to read it.
Okay.
It says, pity I can't listen because someone stole my car radio. So, but I love the guy, especially his teeth. He has the most gorgeous teeth I have ever laid eyes on. I'm going to leave it at that. So the line's still open, 0891 104 208 if you want to speak to Khaya Dlanga. And we'll continue taking those messages and we'll hear a little bit more about him. And I want to know about his latest political convictions. People have a right to change their mind, of course.
Every year on March 15, the world celebrates Consumer Rights Day. This day is set aside to recognize your rights as a consumer. In South Africa, we are fortunate in that our consumer rights are protected by law. Demand your rights every time you buy goods or pay for a service. Your voice is your power. You have the right to be heard. The National Consumer Commission is there to assist you should your consumer rights be violated. Contact the Commission on 012-761-3000. Consumer rights are human rights.
Experience the thrill of the racetrack with SABC Evoke magazine in association with Shell South Africa Marketing. You could win double tickets to the exciting Shell Belgian F1 Grand Prix. All you have to do is download the latest issue of Evoke at sabcevoke.co.za to find the question and answer to your winning entry. Competition closes on the 15th of April 2015 and standard SABC competition terms and conditions apply. Find out more on our SABC Evoke Facebook page or follow us on Twitter at SABC Evoke.
The Forum at 8 on SAFM.
Thank you for tuning in to the Forum at 8 this morning. It's a Friday. We go lighter. This morning we are hosting Khaya Dlanga and we are live streaming for the first time. You can go to sabc.co.za /news and you can watch this radio broadcast there. So it's all about technology. And technology is something that you know very well, Khaya Dlanga. And as we were saying in earlier intros, that you are a social media guru. And you know, one of the most popular people on Twitter, for example. I follow you. And given that you have so many followers, you know, and the fact that some people instinctively believe everything that comes from Khaya Dlanga, they are even persuaded by your views on certain things, certain events in the world. Must be a huge responsibility that comes with that sort of power.
It's so funny. Years ago, I was actually asked about that question, and I always said that the power that comes with social media is an illusion, because a lot of people take it quite seriously. So they think that there is this real thing because I have so many followers. Therefore, I am really powerful. But it's actually quite, it's fickle, and it is not real. And that's how I've seen it. But I've also come to realize that some people take the things that I do say, quite seriously. And luckily not too many. But, so I always find it a little weird that, because for me, when I started, I was just saying things I felt like saying. And because I live in a democratic country that allows me to express my views. And that is really all I was doing. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I think about a certain thing. And that was all there was for me to it.
Do you think you have a responsibility, though, to actually maybe, be more circumspect in what you put out there?
I think, I may feel that maybe there is a point where I do have to consider that and think a little bit more. Because it was very strange. I wrote a thing about towning, and I wrote this whole thing. It's in my first book, explaining what it is and what it comes from. And I mean, I did not start it, but it became really a phrase that people used and started attaching it to me as the person who kind of came up with it. And some thought that I was endorsing that behavior, even though I hadn't. And it's a really strange thing. So do you take responsibility over certain things when you know that that is not what you're doing, but it's how someone else is interpreting the thing that you're saying? So I think for me, am I so big-headed that I will think that people need to take the things that I say seriously, that I have to guard the things that I have to say? Or should I continue being the citizen that I think I am, an ordinary citizen who happens to have views that other people listen to, not because they'll follow? For me, I think that's how I see it. I don't think people will follow the thing that I'm saying. I see it as people who are just, they find the things that I say that they resonate. So that's it, and nothing more.
And Cope, what happened with Cope?
That was very interesting and dark time in my life. Because I think what happened, I got so furious, I think, and so emotional. And I realized that at the point now that in politics, you really cannot be, persuaded by your emotions. I think I was really upset by the treatment of former President Mbeki, how he got kicked out. And I was like, oh man, this is terrible. How can they make this happen? And I was also like on that like anti-Zuma kind of moment, that a lot of people had at the time. And then what I came to realize was that actually Cope is, if not, could possibly be worse at some point. Then I was quite neutral, and then I was like, actually for me, the party that is right, that is doing what it should be doing for our people is the ANC. And I actually went through a period where I walked myself back, and I've come to realize that I cannot base my decision on who is leading the party or how I feel about the people who are leading the party, because the principles of a party do not change. Because if you look at the principles of the ANC, they are exactly the same as they were however many years ago. Leaders have come and gone and have changed, and maybe the formation or how the party behaved changed according to who was leading it at the time, but the core values remain the same. Because even like all the parties that break away, they're very similar. Their principles are very similar. So why should I go to those guys when they really have nothing original? So for me, that was that it was a long walk back, and I had to come back with my tails between my legs. Yeah.
And of course, we will explore this further one day when we get Musiwa Lekota into studio and talk about this, or some other people. But let's hear from Abdullah in Cape Town. Good morning.
Good morning, Sakina. morning to the gentleman, the guy.
Okay, Abdullah, that line is no good, unfortunately. And so we're going to have to leave that one there. Khaya Kumalo says, thanks for bringing Khaya Dlanga, a man who uses words beautifully. I mean, he gets hundreds of retweets all the time. And then Stephen in Durban says, what a dynamic and interesting guest. Thank you. He really does show how, with hard work, drive and determination, the sky is the limit. True meaning of the saying, achieved in spite of, not failed because of. That's from Stephen in Durban. And Spiwe Ndaleka in KZN says, what does friendship mean to you, Khaya? Given that, you were keeping people at arm's length when you were younger, what does it mean to you now?
I think what I actually realized, what that taught me was actually to identify genuine people very quickly, like today. And that's how I have a very small circle of friends, and I believe that I'm a very good judge of character as a result. Because I was so careful at the time, you got to pick up who was actually being genuine. For me, friendship is someone who is absolutely genuine and is not judgmental towards your behavior or whatever happens to you. So all their interest is in your character and the kind of person that you are and you'll become. That, for me, is what true friendship is, as opposed to, we're just drinking buddies. There's more to it than that for me.
And just a few quick messages to end this off. I respect this guy. He reminds me of how I grew up in my rural area in Zimbabwe. Big up, Khaya. And Rishoketsue says, I absolutely love the book, Khaya. You really inspire me. Mfana Boy MCB says, I'm getting the book. And it really is, quite an interesting read. Pity we have limited time, so we can't go through all of it. But just, by the way, where are you right now? People want to know, what do you do now?
Oh, what do I do now?
2015. Where do you work? What do you do, Khaya?
Okay, I'll tell, because people don't know what I do. So what I do is that I work for Coca-Cola. And what I do there is that I look after all the communication strategies and all the advertising across all the brands. So we have 26 brands, so across of those. That's what I do.
And you still have time to go and do breakfast with Shaka Sisulu? Well.
No.
But I guess reading the book, one kind of understands how, you got to have this work ethic that you do, and perhaps how you're able to still have time for the more pleasant things in life. But Khaya Dlanga, thank you so much for coming through this morning.
No, thank you. I know that, so many times I haven't been able to come through, but thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. And of course, his book, to quote myself, a memoir by Khaya Dlanga, you can actually get hold of that and you'll get, the full story of this man, Khaya Dlanga, from growing up in Dutini and how he ended up in Cape Town and how he got to where he is right now. And thank you so much for those of you who actually went on to the live streaming, and thanks saying that we look nice this morning. Appreciate it. But yeah, it is a challenge because we do radio because we don't want to be seen, and now these two worlds are colliding, yes, converging, and how do we deal with this? Well, thank you so much to everyone, Khaya Dlanga, and of course to our listeners for participating fully as always, and to the production team for making sure it went out loud and clear, both production teams, that is. And of course, we're back on Monday, bright and early, 6 to 9 a.m. Have a fantastic weekend. For Bakshni Chetty Miller standing by with news.
SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader.
Top stories. Police and private security deployed outside Medupi power station, and Ravi says he's ready to fight to reunite the fractured Labour Federation. Good morning. Police and private security officers have been deployed outside Eskom's multi-billion rand Medupi power station at Lephalale in